All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL video. Going to be getting into the Monday Night Football Showdown slate, breaking down everything that you need to know while giving you guys the top picks. Let's go ahead and get into it. So as always, I'd like to start off with a game preview, and just looking at this game, this is going to be a lower scoring game, one of the lowest scoring games that we actually saw in week 8. So looking at the game total, 36.5. So really not expected to be that many points in this game. Also, kind of interesting that the Steelers are almost 6-point favorites in this game as well. The Giants are a team that up until last week had not been playing all too poorly, but that being said, they did play poorly last week, so that is part of the equation as well. Now, one of the tougher things I would say about this game specifically is going to be trying to figure out what the Giants are going to do with their running back room. And the reason I say that is because Devin Singletary came back from injury last week, but only played 21% of the snaps. Throughout the games in which he was out, I thought Tyrone Tracy looked really good, especially in the passing game. But when I was watching him rush the football, my biggest takeaway is like, man, if they had a good vision running back, if you will, a running back that's going to run the play kind of correctly each and every time, that running back would have had a much bigger and better game. And to me, that was just screaming Devin Singletary in a weird way would have had a bigger and better game. Now, again, it's not like Tracy looked bad or anything like that. I just think when I look at Brian Daboll as a coach, he is someone that wants a play to be run specifically a certain way. He wants that player that's going to give you 4 yards per carry on every carry rather than one guy that's going to pop a few big plays. And so to me, like Devin Singletary is more of the straightforward player, going to make the correct play every single time. Maybe a little bit limited in terms of his athletic abilities compared to Tyrone Tracy. And so because of that, I feel like that does make this slate a little bit more difficult to predict. On top of that, Daniel Jones did get pulled in that game last week. Obviously don't like that. If that happens again, that's going to create a little bit of variance in this game. The one thing that we can rely on from the Giants most likely is that Theo Johnson is going to continue to play a lot of snaps in this game. He's been averaging about 80% of the snaps, and we saw last week and the week before that around 90% of the snaps. That's the one thing that has stayed consistent. And then receiver-wise, Malik Neighbors back up into his normal snap share. And then we also saw Wendell Robinson kind of get his normal snap share as well, with Darius Slayton still getting a lot of work as well. So that shouldn't change. So at least we have like 4 players that we can at least kind of predict snap count share-wise for the New York Giants. Let's go ahead and take a peek at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so for the Pittsburgh Steelers, their snaps have been very annoying. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so George Pickens, we don't know if he's going to play 80% of the snaps. We don't know if he's going to play 60% of the snaps. I'm assuming it's going to be closer to 80% of the snaps, but we don't know that for sure. Van Jefferson has been playing an extremely annoying amount of snaps as well, typically about 60% of the snaps. And then you look at someone like Calvin Austin, who has looked good when he's played a decent amount. They still haven't been using him all too much as well. So that's going to make it a little bit difficult. You look at the tight end snap share. We have seen a lot of 2 tight end sets to the point where Darnell Washington is gaining like 50% of the snaps along with Pat Freiermuth. And then running back wise, kind of a good thing, I would say, about a 50-50 split between Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. That's something that I do expect to continue. If you guys were watching the games, Jaylen Warren's look great. He has that burst. I would say it's kind of the same situation that I just called out with the Giants as well, where Najee is someone that does consistently make the correct play over and over again, whereas obviously Jaylen Warren is more the big play guy. Okay, so looking at the Giants, we know that they are about 6-point dogs in this game, so the likelihood for any of the Giants to really break the slate is a little bit reduced in this game. And at the same time, we do have some strange prices. So a lot of people are going to look at Devin Singletary's price and say, I want no piece of that. And for the most part, I agree, especially given the price that we have on Tyrone Tracy. Now, I know I just kind of said I wouldn't be surprised to see this be more of a Devin Singletary game. But at the same time, given the price of Tyrone Tracy Jr., it does make sense just to be rostering him. Now, I don't think we have to go crazy with it. And I do think that you should be strategic about it as well. Maybe you have a little bit of Devin Singletary in the captain spot where you are completely fading Tyrone Tracy Jr. because the field is going to be on Tyrone Tracy Jr. a bunch. And if it's not a big game for him, you are gaining some huge leverage on the field by playing Devin Singletary instead. And if it is a very good Devin Singletary game and you have him in the captain spot, that could definitely lead you to winning a GPP, especially for low-owned captains play. And you're also fading a correlated play in Tyrone Tracy Jr. And so that's not a bad route to go. Now, after that, we are gaining a lot of snaps out of, again, Malik Neighbors, Wendell Robinson, and then also Darius Slayton. But I also really like the snap counts that we are getting on Theo Johnson. If Theo Johnson can at least get us 6 points at this price tag, To me, that is huge. And to me, that is something that I'm currently chasing and I want to be doing. So I like him as a flex play. Again, probably going to be playing Tyrone Tracy Jr. at this price tag. He should be involved in the passing game. I do think he's a better third down back, obviously a better receiving back. That's what he did in college. And if this is a game in which they are 6-point dogs, yes, we are going to see him a little bit more than probably Devin Singletary in the fourth quarter. But again, we can make some game script builds based off of that. I do find it hard to get to Daniel Jones in this game, just going against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just a very difficult matchup for him. And now that it's on the table that he could potentially get pulled, that does concern me. Now, that game was a blowout. To me, the Giants just didn't show up. Now, I don't really think Daniel Jones has been the problem really at all this season, but he's not the solution. Again, that's kind of the reason why the Steelers moved on from Fields to go with Wilson, because Wilson can be the difference maker in a win or a loss. And don't get me wrong, Daniel Jones has done that, but I think those days are now very limited for him. Now, I do like the idea of getting to Robinson. This does feel like a very cheap and safe play. He's kind of my ultimate shoulder shrug play this game, where if you end up on him, you're very happy to do it. You shrug your shoulders and you move on with your build. As price tag, he's certainly easy to get to. And I would argue Neighbors a little bit too cheap, but again, very difficult matchup. And if you're fading Neighbors, you should definitely be playing Wendell Robinson as well. Maybe even potentially playing Darius Slayton. Let's go ahead and jump into the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for the Steelers, it does get a little bit more difficult, because I will say I do see a path in which both Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren can be in a GPP winning lineup. They're both playing about 50% of the snaps. Jaylen Warren looked really good last week. Then you also have Najee Harris, who is probably the most likely to score a touchdown among the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a very good game last week as well, able to get over 100 rushing yards in the last two games both, and then also scoring a touchdown in both of those games. But if they're going to be getting a 50-50 work split, then it is tough to imagine them both feasting at the same time. I do think the Steelers' strategy is going to be to really run the ball into the ground like it was the last 2 weeks. And I think that's going to be the strategy again. It is pretty amazing the schedule that the Steelers have had this year as well. I do think we want to be playing Russell Wilson. I do see him having a good game in this game. Will he have a master class? I guess I shouldn't even say that. It wasn't a master class last week, but a really good game like he had last week. Probably not. Like, I do think that those games are going to be limited for him, and this is a more difficult matchup against the Giants. I know it was a more difficult matchup against the Jets last week, and he had a great game. But in that game, he also had a rushing touchdown. I don't think we're really banking on that to occur too much. But I do see him having a good game, so simply put, I do want to be rostering. Do I want to roster him in the captain spot? Maybe not, but we also will be able to do that. I do probably want one of Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren. Given the pricing, maybe a little bit more Warren, but at the same time, Najee certainly looked good. George Pickens, obviously we like the talent. He does have random games where he's just not a part of the game plan. I don't think that's going away. I do kind of see him more of the category of captains play first rather than a flex play, because we see it looking at his game log, guys, like 20 points, 13 points in a low scoring game. That's pretty high. Like, if we're putting him into the captain spots in those games, we're gaining an edge on the field because we're banking on those big upside games, where if we have him in the flex and it only gives us like 10 points, sure, that's still great. But then there's the potential that we're losing out a little bit of upside with the rest of our lineup. He probably will be my highest owned captain's play because of that. And guys, when I say that, it's not like I'm not playing him in the flex, but I want to make the point of emphasis of saying that I think he's like the best captain's play in terms of potentially pushing out a GPP winning lineup, if that makes sense. So from there, it does become a little bit more of a guessing game. Like, I will say Kelvin Austin and Van Jefferson, both a little bit too cheap. If you look at Chris Boswell, he's projected to get over 1.5 field goals made prop betting. And so obviously that would be at least 6 points if he gets 2 field goals made. Tack on maybe 1 extra point. That's going to be appealing. And he's someone that, kind of is at a cheap price tag. I don't know. Could we end up seeing Chris Boswell be the highest scorer if he scores 17 kicking points again? Obviously, that's crazy. That's an outlier, but maybe. I do like the idea of playing him in the flex. But guys, this is how easy it is to make a pretty darn good build this week because we have so much value. And so ignore everything I just said about Tyrone Tracy Jr., or the Devin Singletary captain stuff real quick, because if you are making a kind of, slate optimal build, I think this is a great build. Like, this should be a high upside build here. You're getting Neighbors, you're getting Wilson, you're getting Pickens, you're getting Boswell, you're getting Robinson, you're getting a lot of safe production. And if Tracy even gets a 50% workload split, then this is a very cheap price tag for him. And I don't mind the idea of doing this. Should be one of the higher floor builds that we can make. But let's see what the 9-to-5 lineup builder is telling us is going to be a good build as well. And so again, to make this run, we just give it 2 data points to go off of. Again, for the captain spot, I'm actually going to really bump up George Pickens to around 20. And maybe for Daniel Jones, I'm just going to limit him to like 5%, whatever. Just, we need to give 2 data points to go off of. I'm just going to give a general run for this so you guys can see what the 9-to-5 lineup builder is spitting out to us as the best lineup or lineups. And so what it's saying, Chris Boswell captain. Okay, I kind of mentioned that could be the case. Daniel Jones, George Pickens. It typically does defer to 2 quarterbacks. We typically see that happen, and it is doing that. Again, I am a little bit worried about getting to Daniel Jones that much. A little bit of Steelers DST. I'm probably not going to put them in the captain spot, just as an FY. This might be a slate in which I do set a rule where I do at most, and I'll show you guys this, at most 2 of, and then I'll do the kickers in the captain spot. Here, I'll show you Steelers. So like at most 2 of Steelers in the captain spot or flex. And I'll do Giants as well. Now, the Giants probably aren't going to get pulled in there. And then Chris Boswell as well. And then is it still Greg Joseph as the kicker? I don't even remember, but Greg Joseph, sure. Giants kicker. At most 2 of those in a build here, and you guys can see it better right now. And that's because it's such a low-scoring game that I guess I don't mind if it pulls in 2 of those, but I really don't want that many of them. But that's my way of saying I'm not going to tell the data not to do that as well. Now, guys, that's going to be all for this video. Do want to remind you guys of the promo code that's currently going on the 9to5 website. Use the promo code Keep Cashing. You get 20% off your first 9to5 membership. Take advantage of that, guys. Great way to kind of invest in yourself. You get access to the NFL DFS cheat sheet, the NFL lineup builder, all the prop tools as well as all the fantasy golf tools as well. That's going to be all for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.